Okay, I'm going to be telling you about the stuff that I've done in the last few days, which I think is quite exciting. I showed you in the video before that I was working on this second brain concept with the help of Claude Code, with the help of MCPs of different kind, and Obsidian. And I want to go back to that because I have developed that a little further, and I think it actually started to make a useful sense, and I'm happy to share with you how that works. So first of all, if you're not familiar with Obsidian, it's basically like a note-taking app that allows you to very conveniently connect nodes from different parts that you are saving and build these connections between those nodes. So as a result, when you work a lot with that and you follow a certain practice of doing that, you end up with hundreds and hundreds of those nodes that are connected with each other. And those connections is what is important in this case, because once you have those hidden connections identified, that's the unique insight and that's the unique knowledge that you can build into your knowledge base and then leverage it. Now, there is an old method that I'm sure you've heard of called Zettelkasten, which is basically a guy's method. There was a writer, science writer, I forgot his name, but there was an actual method that he developed that allowed him to produce dozens, if not hundreds, of books over the lifetime. He was using like basic techniques like postcards and a directory of notes that he writes. But actually, people then took this methodology and put it in Obsidian and other tools as a way to manage their knowledge. And I was using that for a while, a few years ago. Then I got bored with that because it's quite a mundane kind of thing that you need to do, to type in your thoughts, notes, and collect the insights from different books, videos that you're watching, and stuff like that. But now with artificial intelligence and actually agentic systems that are capable of managing this kind of second brain workspaces, it started to make sense again. So what I've done is I took Claude Code and used it not as a coding agent, but rather as an assistant for my work with the knowledge base. And there are a few tricks that I've done in order to connect it successfully. Trick number one is that I connected a plugin to Obsidian called Smart Connections. So this Smart Connections plugin is basically a thing that allows you to vectorize your knowledge base and then pull from it based on the vectorized matches, based on the semantic similarity, and also with the use of connections. So you can pull things, search things by semantic similarity, and then pull things with the connected nodes. So as long as you have your knowledge base and your ideas in the knowledge base well connected and accurate, then you can find pretty strange connections and pull them into your context in code to then work with them. Now, the second trick is that I actually launch Claude within my knowledge base because Obsidian is storing all of these nodes and stuff in just regular markdown files. If I want, I taught Claude to actually make changes there and do that in the way that I like. So it goes in and it creates the nodes or analyzes or changes the nodes just as regular files. Then basically I wrote a bunch of specific instructions that follow this Zettelkasten method. And that means that there is a stage for collecting insights from different literature and my insights that I'm providing. Then there is a stage for reviewing those and finding hidden connections between different permanent nodes, as they're called, in the knowledge base. And at the end of the day, there is a sophisticated search and find functionality that allows you to synthesize this knowledge and to create actually interesting, unique pieces of content about that are not based on random AI telling you stuff, but actually based on your own insights that you collected and structured in a form that allows you to operate with that pretty actively and in a very effective way. Now, what I've done is I haven't been using this approach with Obsidian for a few years, but now as I came back to that, I basically took all the pieces of content that I created over these years on my blog, Substack, LinkedIn, and other places. I wrote a sub-agent on Claude that extracts the insights from this content and then stores them in this knowledge base. I have a separate routine that runs by request or even on schedule to review the hidden connections and find those hidden connections between the insights that I have created. So now as a result, I have a machine that can basically be a universal content creator for me and the storer of my insights and knowledge in an incredibly easy to see and maintain kind of format. Meaning that it's not just Claude Code that understands what's happening there, but it's actually me just opening up Obsidian and looking at all the different insights and into the actual tree view graph of those insights connected between each other. Following this, you're gonna see exactly how this is structured and made, and also you can find in the description a link to the GitHub repo with a template project for this kind of approach. And yes, please, if you find it useful, subscribe, comment, like, because my AI agent tells me that I have low engagements on my YouTube channel. So thank you. So as you can see on the left-hand side, I've got Obsidian over here, and on the right-hand side, I've got my Claude code in the terminal. So I'm just gonna, well, it's busy doing something. I'm not gonna distract Claude Code from that, but I wanna show you how the workspace in Obsidian is set up so that you can later basically take that and use for your own, if you'd like. So a few things. This is the actual connected nodes with the different concepts and ideas that I have. At the end of the day, this is just a folder with a given structure. As you can see, I have this brain structure over here. I have a few additional files and folders. I want to walk you through them and actually show you what they mean. So ignore this Eugene personal brand. This is just a content folder with a lot of my previous articles and content pieces. So it just sits as it is needed for the Claude code. But other than that, as you can see, there is actual ClaudeMD file, and I'm going to share that in the GitHub repository with you so you can reuse that. And this is the key for the operations of Claude Code that is, doing something on the right. And it's a key in a way that it describes specifically how it's supposed to be working. So what is this Zettelkasten method? How is it going to extract insights from the content that I provided? And a lot of other details that went into the design of this prompt. So take a look. I'm not going to go through everything, but actually it spent quite a bunch of time designing just this particular prompt. Capabilities is knowledge synthesis, content generation, insight discovery, and kind of reading companion. Reading companion. The idea is that when I'm reading certain books or watching YouTube videos and I find certain insights that I want to remember, because I find them interesting or unique. That is exactly where Claude is helping me do that and saving that into my knowledge base. I also told it explicitly somewhere in the prompt to not contribute too much unless it is asked to do so, because that actually is not helpful when it starts hallucinating. I want it to be a collection of my unique ideas, thoughts, and insights, rather than AI's ideas. And I'm of course working with it in order to develop those, but reality is like I want it to be mine. A few other things, it identifies that there is a changelog, and each change that AI is making into my knowledge base, into the second brain, needs to be written down in the changelog. And actually we can see this changelog over here with all the changes that had been made by AI in the knowledge base. What's also interesting over here is that we have created a couple of sub-agents and commands in Claude that relies on particular ways of running the business. Like one of them has just completed the analysis of the knowledge base. I basically gave it an instruction to this sub-agent that you need to go and analyze the entire knowledge base and build your understanding of that and save it into this knowledge base analysis document, which is right here. The idea being that this knowledge base analysis document is linked in the ClaudeMD. So when Claude starts, you see it's right here, it automatically loads into context the knowledge base analysis, which means that it starts understanding it very well, what sits where, what are the information flow patterns within this Zettelkasten method, what are the thematic clusters. Like in my case, for example, there's a cluster for consciousness, self, and Buddhism and stuff like that. There is a cluster for dopamine and motivation system, and there is a cluster for behavioral economics, decision making, and cognitive biases, and identity and belief systems, and social media and polarization, and some other stuff. Point is that this gives a very detailed understanding of the knowledge base to Claude. It's pretty big, actually. It creates almost 2,000 lines, which takes a lot of context from out there. Then let's go through a couple of other sub-agents that exist over here. I will bring up this and show you what I mean. So as you know, the files that are settings for the Claude, they are hidden. So I need to use Finder to show you what I mean. But the basic idea here is in the .claude agents folder, we have a bunch of these sub-agents, and each of them is a little different, has different responsibility. So what we have is we have the auto discovery agent that is basically a hunter for the connections within the knowledge base. Then I have this little diagram generator. That's a whole, like it's just a utility thing to help me create images for the articles that I'm creating to explain certain concepts. Then we have insights creator. Basically a specialized agent for extracting unique insights. That is a very useful piece because I basically give it, say, my article or some other piece of content that I created before, and it analyzes that, extracts the insights, searches for these insights in the knowledge base, and if those are the new ones and fresh ones, then it puts them into the knowledge base. And then I have this Vault Manager, which is basically CRUD operations over the Vault. Actually, not sure if I'm gonna necessarily need that in this fashion going forward. I have used Obsidian API, local API, with a plugin at first, but then when I decided to switch the entire workspace into the Obsidian workspace folder, it lost any sense. It's much easier for Claude to edit files directly. Yeah, there's a couple of commands over here. This analyze knowledge base is the command that created this knowledge base analysis. We have one for finding connections, which I think is a little irrelevant because we already have sub-agents for that. We have a recall feature. What it does is it basically allows you to remember or find nodes using semantic search and connections with any topic. Let's say I'm gonna clear this. I'm gonna say recall and say, I don't know, economy under inflationary pressure. That's what's in everybody's heads, right? It's going through this smart connections plugin and picking up articles, reads them, understands whether there's anything relevant, and now it's going to give me a summary. And we can dive deeper into that then. There you go. It's actually went to Taleb, it went to risk management and a bunch of other things. So let's wait for that. Okay, so of course it's not returning because I don't have this particular set of nodes in my knowledge base, but it found what is the most kind of relevant, which is risk and uncertainty management, behavioral economics, and investment strategies. So good. It's basically the idea is to search your knowledge base and see what you have over there on a particular topic. It's a recall method. Now, search Vault. This one, yeah, it's basically search. I don't remember why or how it is different from recall, but I don't know, at some point I created it. And update changelog. When I'm actively making changes into the knowledge base, I then just run this update changelog command in order to obviously update the changelog. And also I wanted to show you this MCP. So the MCP over here is, I don't know if you can see that. But anyway, there's only one important MCP, the Smart Connections one, which is a plugin, community plugin for Obsidian, and it allows to get this semantic search done and also pulls connections, few layers of connections from different nodes. I think it's quite an important concept for that thing to start working. So my uses for this thing is, as I mentioned, so I'm taking that and updating the knowledge base with my insights and what I do. But really, when I want to create a piece of content like I did over here, I just did the dopamine economy thing. I think that was the last one. Yeah. So I asked it to create an article based on, given insights. It looked through the entire knowledge base, understood my ideas, connections, and created something that has my particular insights connected in a nice way. And then I added to that. I don't want to go through the article itself. You can do that yourself and take a look. I will publish that. But I also added these MCPs that are creating charts, explanatory kind of charts for different concepts that we're doing. For the sake of experiment, let me try to create an article over here with you and see how that works. I'm going to use Whisper Flow, so I'm going to dictate to Claude. I wanted to use my knowledge base and create an article about a spiritual life and development of the spiritual life in the age of artificial intelligence. A couple pages long, not too long, and create a few explanatory charts that will go along with an article. So it started working on the article. Let's take a look what's happening. So it's calling a couple of recalls. Then it's pulling 3-layer connections. So it basically, in this chart, it finds certain nodes, and then it's pulling 3 layers of connected nodes, because each node over here is a concept or something like that. And you see they are connected to other nodes over here. As we can see, it finished reading stuff and started writing stuff. I actually don't think I have any thought in the knowledge base on how spiritual life is going to develop in the age of artificial intelligence, but let's see what it comes up with. Maybe it will use some of my insights in order to create something actually useful. Right, I realized that I didn't go through how this structure works. On the left, how the main workflow works. It is described in details in the Claude MD on how this knowledge base is organized. The basic logic is that whatever you input into the system ends up in the inbox. The source analysis, like you're reading a book and leaving notes for the book, ends up here in sources, and then into the permanent notes, we're moving only the things that are actually ready to go insights that could be connected with other things within that. And then we've got maps of context. Maps of context are pretty powerful. It basically is like overviewing map of the different ideas and concepts. It's like a more focused version of the knowledge base analysis, but it's part of, going towards particular kind of knowledge base piece. And of course we have output with articles and stuff. And also we have this meta, where it keeps the change logs on particular changes. Actually need to deduplicate so it didn't do the 2 change logs at the same time, and a couple of templates. So there's not really all that much to show, but I think this guy on the right is approaching, yep, it had finished with the article, it created it and saved it in the output. So we go here. All right, so yeah, it came up with an article. I don't see the images though. It should have created some images. Where, I'm just gonna ask it, where did you put the images? Okay, Buddhist response, ancient wisdom for modern transformation, non-attachment, spiritual practices in AI age. Anyway, I would need to dig deeper into that to validate whether it actually makes sense or not. Let's see. Yes, download them. I need to give it better instructions with regards to what needs to be done when creating the articles. Because last time it actually did put it in the folder. Ah, there you go. Now we have a folder, and now we have images over here. They're quite rudimentary. But this one is nice. So there's definitely some work to do with the charting and the imaging, but as beginnings for you to create and manage your own knowledge base, your second brain, I think that's a good start. I am definitely, I have it in the ready to use kind of way for the last few days, and I find it incredibly useful for everything from brainstorming, for storing my insights and the rest of that. I also want to do that a bit later. I will integrate headless mode for the Claude code, so I can remotely call that to save insights and do that from, say, my messenger on the mobile phone or the Notes app or something along those lines. So there you go. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and let me know if you are using second brain approaches and how that is working out for you. Maybe you have some insights that I missed over here. Other than that, enjoy your day and see you soon.